Hey there riders, Moto Chris here, and I wanted to have a really quick chat about probably the two simplest kind of weekly maintenance jobs that you need to do on your bike. In fact, the chain lube and tyre pressure. Tyre pressure is so important. As you should know, the tyres are what are keeping you stuck to the ground, and if you let that tyre pressure get too low, it totally messes up how the bike will handle in various conditions. Can make it really dangerous, and on top of that, it'll wear your tires really quickly. Now, just to have a quick chat about kind of how tire pressure works. Tire pressures are set when the bike and the tires are cold, and basically that's because that's a baseline. It's going to be, you know, a consistent baseline of where you're setting the tire to. All tire recommendations should be cold, particularly on the street. Now, what happens is, as you ride and as force goes through those tires, which is acceleration and braking forces, those tires warm up. And so the tire pressure that we're putting in the garage, that's very different than what it's actually going to be once the tire gets up to temperature. And then on the road, there's going to be probably a temperature which it kind of gets to. On the track, they reach much higher temperatures because they're just under so much more force and there's so much more friction involved with all the acceleration or the braking. So that is why on the track you run much lower pressures, but on the road it's really important as well. Now, obviously, there's always a manufacturer recommendation for tire pressures. Kawasaki reckon 32 in the rear and 28 in the front. I reckon 28 in the front's a little bit low, but if in doubt, go with what the manufacturer says. But I will be running 30 in the front, 32 in the rear. What you need to do this is really simple. You just need a tire gauge, and I've got to say, the old analog tire gauges I reckon are really good. You need to get a good one, because particularly if you have it, you know, if you take it everywhere with you, which you should do, because you can't trust the pressure readings at petrol stations. You really need to use your own gauge and then figure out, you know, fill it up with the machine there and then make sure it's right. But you've got a couple of different options. There are digital ones as well, but you're probably going to need to spend a little bit more for a good digital one compared to an analog one. I've got this really basic one, which is more of like a bicycle one, really small. That's probably a good one to just chuck in your bag to have with you or under the seat or something. This one is a little bit more handy because it's got this extension cord, really easy to get in, because especially with the big discs on a lot of these bikes, it's just a bit of a hassle to get in there. So now I've already aligned the wheel so that I can get in there pretty easily. And of course, the Ninja 400 only has the single disc on the front, so I can actually go from the other side. Now, this hasn't been ridden in a couple of weeks, and it shows because the tire pressure is way down at 24. As I said, I'm going to be putting that up to 30, and it's a really easy job. We'll go in from the other side. Now, you will find that on bikes which have dual discs, it's much harder to get in there, particularly on the front. So that's why something like this comes in really handy, and obviously a tyre pump which you can get in there. And you just get a solid seal on, and then we're just going to pump it right up, and then if we have to, we'll release the pressure down, or we might need to put a bit more air pressure in. Now keep in mind, the front tire is going to hold a lot less pressure than the rear. And we're up at 34. There we go, 30 on the front. Now we just got to do the rear. Now I'm not going to bore you with me doing the rear. Make sure you put those stem caps back on. And like I said, really important job, because the tires are what keep you stuck to the ground. Really important for handling, for grip, for wear, for everything. So make sure you do that nice and regularly. Once a week, maybe twice a week if you're doing a lot of Ks. You want to keep it consistent, you want to keep it at the right level. Okay, so I've done the rear tire as well. The rear tire was much closer to spec. I know it was 32 before, it was only at 31. I just pumped it up a little bit just to get it back to 32, and we're now good to go in tire pressures. However, you'll notice that this particular tire was down at 24. Now, obviously that really quite significant drop because it hasn't been ridden and it hasn't been checked more frequently. Maybe a warning sign that there might be a slow leak in the tire. Okay, so these videos are getting on the long side. I've done the air pressure on the tires. What I'm going to do is I'm going to split doing the chain into a separate video just because it's getting too long, and I know you're probably getting bored and want to look at something a little bit fun, but that video will be up in a couple of days' time. Obviously, as I said, the tire pressure needs to be done fairly often, maybe once a week, twice a week, fairly often. The chain lube every 500 Ks, wherever that falls for you, and we'll be looking at doing the chain lube shortly. As you can see here, I've got it all ready to go on the bike, so stay tuned for that, and I'll be back soon. Don't forget to sub, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and of course, stay safe out there.